All right, wonderful. Can everybody hear me okay? Loud and clear. All right, we're live. Good stuff. Hey guys, happy Friday. Nice to see everybody. Just out of curiosity, show of hands here, who's pumped for the long weekend? Yeah, for sure, huh? Awesome. Well, good to see you guys. Welcome to Success Principles. Last week, if you recall, we left off, we were talking a little bit about self-discipline. Self-discipline. And what is self-discipline? Well, turns out self-discipline is self-mastery. It's taking ownership of your thoughts, your emotions, and your actions and your behavior. It's owning them, controlling them, okay? And turns out it's actually a necessary ingredient to success. Who'd have thunk, huh? Self-discipline, no brainer. But it's true, you know? And we talked a little bit about the three forms of self-discipline, okay? We talked about active self-discipline, reactive self-discipline, and proactive self-discipline. I don't know about you guys, but I found that really helpful to be able to understand, identify, and articulate the three different forms. And I can see how they apply in my life. And it's almost like just being able to observe that or distinguish between the different forms is empowering for me to be able to see that and apply it in the moment, kind of thing. Truth is, you know, if you can't control your thoughts and your mind will control you. And if you're allowing your mind to control you, well, you're in trouble. You know, I've said this lots before about, you know, my mind can be a pretty dark and dangerous place. And my mentor says, don't go in there alone. You know, and it's true. But today we're going to shift gears a little bit. Okay. Today we're going to shift gears a little bit. Today we're going to be talking about the 15 major causes of failure. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, this is supposed to be a program about success. What are we doing talking about failure? But the truth is, you know, because of the law of polarity, okay, the law of polarity states that if we're going to have a conversation about success, we've got to at least have a conversation about failure too, don't we? Start to understand what it is, how it happens, possibly how to avoid it, right? So today we're going to be looking at the 15 most common causes of failure. Now, this is a heavy word. This is a loaded word. There's a lot of things that come up when people talk about failure. And I'm curious, if you guys could unmute yourself and throw, what are some of the first words that come to mind when I say the word failure? What are some of the first either thoughts, words, or emotions that bubble to the surface? Melissa?
Disappointment.
Disappointment. Okay. For sure. Eh? Janelle?
I think inevitable, necessary.
Inevitable, necessary. Okay. And why do you say that?
Because my whole mindset of failure has changed. If I'm not failing, I'm not trying, I'm not growing. So like failures, it's fine. It's part of the process.
It's fine. It's part of the process. It's inevitable. Cool. Jamie, you look like you were going to say something there too.
Oh, the same as Janelle, just growth.
Growth. Okay, cool.
The gateway.
Oh, the gateway. The gateway to what?
Success.
The gateway to success.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go through failure to get there.
Oh yeah, you learn through your failures.
Oh, is there another way? I don't like that gateway. Can we take a different route, a detour, or what? Yeah, okay. So we got a couple. Anybody else? What words or what feelings, emotions come to mind when I say failure? Skylar, how about yourself, bud? What do you think?
Kind of same as Janelle and Jamie. Came to mind was learning opportunity.
Learning opportunity. Okay, cool. You guys been watching some Ted Lasso, eh?
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. Tamara?
My first thought was the opposite. It took me back to a time where there was a lack of confidence
Mhm.
and kind of like not good enough and that sort of thing. So good job, girls.
So
I went the other way with it. I went really negative with it.
you went more of the negative direction with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of stirred up feelings for you of like either inadequacy or not being good enough or things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's probably pretty common. And the truth is that I think that's probably most people's relationship with failure. I did the little exercise myself, and some of the first things that came to mind for me were things like damn, or like Melissa said, like disappointment. One was embarrassment. Embarrassment. That was a big one for me. What else came up for me? Like pain. Oftentimes, sometimes it's physical, sometimes it's emotional. The risk of pain. But there were also things too, like, all right, try again. Learning opportunity came up. That was one too. So the truth is, there's probably a little bit of both. Maybe some positive, maybe some negative. I know that this is something that we've been talking about for a while, but I wondered to what extent, what would happen if we completely transformed our relationship with failure? What do I mean by that? I mean, like, not just on like an intellectual level, but like on an emotional level, on the level where it's a feeling, not just a thought. And like, I get the sense sometimes that actually, I don't know if any of you guys had seen Jamie's post that she shared yesterday, and that was perfect timing. I think, I think some cases, the group like this, we have a tendency to fuse. We get on the same wavelength or on the same frequency, and we're thinking some of the similar things. And the fact that Jamie shared this post yesterday, where she posted a failure, or I'm not sure if that was the word that you would use to describe it, but a project of hers didn't go the way that she had hoped it would. And she posted about it publicly, which I thought was really interesting. But what if we transformed our relationship with failure, not just on an intellectual level, but on an emotional level? What would that look like in practice? Or what would that sound like? How would you do that? What do you think? What kind of things come to mind? Is it possible?
I feel like it can be. Like, I don't know, when you even brought it up, like I became very emotional about the word failure. Like it makes me very emotional. It draws emotion out because like in my head, like I feel like there's two very different ways to look at it. Like some people look at it like as opportunity and a way to grow. And like I can see that, I can understand that, but there's like many things in my life where I'm just like, I just like won't accept failure. Like I will do whatever it takes. And like maybe that's just the wrong way to look at it, or maybe it's the right way to look at it. I don't know. But like it drives, it like brings up this like deep emotional like sense of feeling that I don't really feel with anything else. And maybe that deep emotional attachment to the word is what makes me personally say like I can't accept failure.
Right.
I don't know. Like,
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah. So do you feel like that's a motivating factor for you?
Oh, yeah. I think failure for me personally has been one of my ultimate motivating factors in doing certain things in life. Like it could be anything. Like, for example, like I chose to give birth naturally. Like I wanted to have a natural birth. And so like, I didn't know what I was up for. I didn't know, but like, there was no way that I was going to like navigate from that unless there was an emergency. And so for me, like I was like, I don't care what this is going to be like. I will get through it. I will do it. So like just something like that, even where unexpected, but it had this, like, I didn't want to fail at this idea that I had set out for me and what my birth was going to be, and that experience was going to be for us. And so there was a drive there like no other, because I didn't want it to go a different way than from what I had planned, unless it had to, like emergency wise.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, you're tougher than me. I'll tell you that much. When my wife was first pregnant with our first child, she was in the camp. She wanted to take the what is that called? The not the medication. The what is it though? They put the thing into your spine.
The needle. Yeah.
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 What is it?
The epidural.
Epidural. She wanted to
The
take the
only one who
epidural.
hasn't had a kid.
Yeah. She wanted to take the epidural, and I was like, no, come on, let's do this the all natural way. And she's like, that's easy for you to say. And then we were in labor, and I was like, oh, give her the drugs. Like, I can't take this. I can't handle this. So, oh, that childbirth thing, you women are tough, I'll tell you. But yeah, exactly. Round of applause. But let me ask you, so that's been a motivator for you in the past, or in some instances. Do you feel like that also holds you back in others?
Probably. Yeah, probably the fear of failure stops me from doing things, for sure. I mean, I think like you said, it's polarity, right? Like it's the law of polarity, where like it's going to affect me both ways. It's going to affect me positively, and it's going to affect me negatively when I have that mindset.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, very.
Yeah. I mean, that has affected me massively in the past. And I shared this a little bit with you guys before, that my relationship with failure was avoid it at all costs. And I felt like it was the complete opposite of success. You're either succeeding or you're failing. There's no middle ground. And I thought it was one or the other. I didn't see it as a continuation, or like Janelle said, like an inevitability or a natural progression. And so I ended up, in an attempt to avoid failure, not applying myself in a lot of areas of my life, not trying things, not taking chances, not putting my name in the hat, not applying myself. And I find that, did I save myself some embarrassment? Well, maybe. Did I miss out on a lot of opportunity? Oh, 100% I did. 100%. One of those things that I guess you got to learn. You can only learn by doing, you know. But I wonder, you know, when it comes to our relationship with failure, you know, what if we learn to absolutely transform our relationship with failure? What if we learn to celebrate our failures like we celebrate our wins? Now, hear me out here. Hear me out here. You know, in a group like this, we talk a lot about celebrating our wins, you know, keeping score. Okay. And I'll say, you know, count the wins, big or small, we count them all. Right. How do you know if you're winning or losing unless you're keeping track? But what if we learn to celebrate the failures as much as we celebrate the successes? How would that change our perception, our attitude, possibly our trajectory and our growth? Now, what I'm getting at is that some of the world's most successful people have a very healthy and empowering relationship with failure. Not just on an intellectual level, not just like, you know, I'm gonna be real honest with you here. I think sometimes in situations like this, I know what I should say. I should say that failure is, like Jamie said, the gateway to success. But nobody fucking likes failing, do they? Nobody in the moment's like, oh yeah, that feels great. You know, there's a lot involved. There's a lot of emotion to it. And I'm just as susceptible to that as anybody. But I look around at some of the world's most successful people, and they have a very different relationship with failure. Elon Musk, just not all that long ago, had a rocket ship that blew up shortly after takeoff. That rocket ship cost $200 million, was broadcast on public television live in front of the entire world. And you know what their team did when that rocket ship exploded? You should go back and listen to this. It's recorded. You can find it online. You know what they did? They cheered. What? Are you kidding me? That's a pretty massive failure. Now, I don't know if that was like scripted. I don't know if they were told to do that. I don't know. I mean, you wonder. Probably never know. But the fact of the matter is if that's their reaction to a failure on that scale, a $200 million rocket ship that explodes on live TV in front of the entire world, can you imagine how much they're deterred by little everyday obstacles, challenges, setbacks, or failures? Probably not at all. Probably not in the slightest. Somebody quits, somebody, their plan fails. Well, okay, and carry on, moving on, ahead with business. In fact, I shared with you guys, I'm in a mastermind myself, and there's a woman, her name is Natalie. Natalie owns a couple of companies that are down in the States in the Maryland area. And one thing that she shared with me that I always thought was really interesting is when they run into difficulty or problems in their business, say somebody like quits or something like that, they go out to dinner. Her and her husband go out to dinner and they celebrate it. And I always thought that was a little bit odd. I always thought that, well, that's a little bit odd, but they celebrate it. And her reasoning, her logic is like, well, we haven't achieved our goal yet while that person was here. And so now that they're gone, it opens up an opportunity for fresh energy, new people, new ideas, new opportunities. And I imagine this is going to help us get there. It's like, wow, what an empowering attitude. What an empowering belief. What an empowering approach. I've had employees myself. I was so fearful of being left. I was so fearful of what that means and the fear of loss and the fear of less. I'll tell you, that's a terrible way to live. Every time I got a text message from some of my employees or an email, it's like, oh God, what is it? It's not fun. It's not a fun way to live. I'll tell you that. Okay. Or like, I think I've shared some of this before, but I used to sell stuff door to door. I used to sell coupons door to door. Coupons for things like the car washes and like Fuddruckers and stuff, the batting cages and stuff like that. And it was a really good deal. Like if you were going to go to some of those places or you're like getting your car washed and stuff anyway, like it made a lot of sense to buy these coupons. But the job itself of door-to-door sales, you guys are laughing at me. Or somebody making fun of me in the chat or what?
I just feel like you're selling us a little bit on these coupons.
Oh yeah, they're awesome. You literally save hundreds of dollars. Like, do you guys eat out with your dinner or your family very often? Like, go to take the kids to Rutgers?
We just bought a book like last week.
Okay, there you go.
They're still around for kids fundraisers.
Oh, funny. That's hilarious. Yeah. Well, if you're going to use them, it's worthwhile. You'll save yourself hundreds of bucks. But anyway, I used to sell stuff door to door, and I'll tell you, for a job as like an 18, 19-year-old kid, that was pretty good training in resilience. That was pretty good training in facing rejection and facing failure. And we used to have these like team huddles in the morning, and they'd get us all kind of like rah-rah and geared up and stuff to go out there, and they'd drop us off in a neighborhood And this was before cell phones and stuff like that. So we'd have a plan, we had a little map, and you had to do your route and that kind of thing. And we'd partner up. And I had this one partner, Joel. Okay. And they had told us that statistically speaking, just a numbers game, if you knocked on 100 doors, you would make 10 sales. If you did just law of averages. And my goal was to knock on 100 doors. And I knew that if I knocked on 100 doors, chances are I'm probably going to make 10 sales. I forget exactly what that translated to in dollar amounts, but that was my goal for the day. Okay. And Joel and I, he was a pretty good dude actually. And we had this practice that like we'd pass each other on the street, and every time we'd see each other, it was like, whether it was a yes or a no, we'd give each other a high five. And I just loved that, because if it was a yes, it's like, yes, high five. If it was a no, it's like, I'm one closer to a yes. And I just thought, what a great way to like train myself at that age to deal with rejection and to deal with failure. I didn't really realize that. I just thought, well, what other choice do I have here? But I thought, well, if I got a no, then it's like, well, then chances are the next one's probably going to be a yes. And if that one's a no, well, then chances are next one's going to be a yes. But the most successful people have very positive, empowering, healthy relationships with failure. I think Will Smith, I don't know what you guys' position on Will Smith is these days. Okay, let's do a little poll here. Everybody's aware of what happened with Will Smith. Who's in camp Will Smith? Oh, really? Who's like, no more, beat it, Will. You had your chance. Yeah. the poll of public opinion here, hey? I'm a little bit in Team Tamara. I got with the Will Smith book here that I purchased before the Chris Rock incident, and I can't bring myself to read it. Anyway, Will Smith, I think, you know, he said, fail early and fail often. Fail early and fail often. I might even add to that, like, fail big. What do I mean by that? Well, I think that if you're willing to take big chances and big risks, it opens up the door for big growth. Fail early and fail often. Because the truth is that you learn way more in those failures than you ever do on the successes. That's the truth. You learn way more during the failures than you ever do with successes. The lessons, if you're open to them, stick around a lot longer from the failures. That's the truth. You know, one of the things that I've learned is that, like Janelle was saying, that failure is a necessary ingredient too to success. It's not binary. It's not one or the other. It's one and the same. And I don't know if Janelle got that from me or if I got that from Janelle, but one of the things that comes to mind is like, if I'm not failing, I'm not trying. Certainly not trying anything new. That's been my attitude and my approach. And you think about it, like, we naturally are pretty good at trying new things when we're young. For those of you with young kids, you'll probably recognize the fact that your kids, for the most part, are open and willing to try new things. They're not really afraid at a young age of embarrassment or failure. Shit, my kids aren't even afraid of getting hurt. It's me that's like, oh God, this is gonna hurt. You know? In fact, young kids, like when they're first learning to walk, like toddlers, okay, between like 12 and 18 months sort of thing, maybe a little earlier, maybe a little later, they fail on average of about 17 times per hour. But it doesn't deter them. They're just up and out of it again. They're relentless. In fact, once they learn to walk, you think that improves? It actually gets worse. And young toddlers, they're constantly testing the limits. They're constantly pushing the limits on where their capabilities lie. They actually fail about 69 times per hour, not less, more. Because they're climbing, they're running, they're jumping, they're doing all kinds of things. And I wonder, at what point do we begin to become like failure averse? Well, let me back up a step. Do you guys think that people, as we get older, become more reluctant to fail? Or do you think that, yeah, I see a few people nodding their heads. So if as we get older, we become a little bit more reluctant to fail, why do you think that is? Where does that come from? Why would we become more why is there more hesitation around failure? Jamie?
I feel like the school system, the teachers teach us
Mm.
that failure, you can't fail tests. And so I feel like in that school age is when that's where we really started to develop the fear of failure.
Okay, I could see a case to that. Yeah, so
I-
maybe part of the school system. Janelle?
I was gonna agree, and just people and parents, and you make a mistake and they correct you and they tell you to do better, and also the fear of criticism and what other people think of you, that all comes into play as you get a little bit older.
The fear of criticism. You become a little bit more self-aware. Start to consider how other people view you. When you're a kid, you don't care, do you? Like you should see some of the clothes that my kids wear out. My kid actually went through this phase where he wore his Spider-Man costume everywhere. It was super cute, but like it didn't stop him from wearing the and Iron Man too. Yeah. Public, like grocery store, school, the works. It's awesome. Melissa, you look like you were gonna say something too.
Yeah, and I think complacency is a very comfortable place to be for a lot of people as we get older also.
Okay.
We become complacent in where we are, and therefore maybe we stop trying as much.
So
Hit a certain level, or we hit a certain income, or we hit a certain goal that we achieved, and then we just stay there.
okay. So you reach a certain point where you're content and you're happy to just kind of like stay put. Okay, yeah. I think there's probably some truth to that too. Tamara?
This whole conversation kind of reminded me, as soon as we started talking about it, about learning to ride a bike, and how we wouldn't say to our kids like, oh, just quit. Like you tried 3 times to get up and to pedal and you couldn't do it. So it's almost like an inner child thing for us too. Because it's like, we would never have said that to ourselves as kids. Okay, just give up. You're not going to be able to ride a bike. So don't do it.
Yeah, right.
We'd be like, keep going, keep going, keep going. And like, you got it. And it's easier to do that with other people, but we tend to not do that to ourselves. We don't really, it's like, and then I think like, as we get into grade school, our paradigm really kicks in, and it's like, and then you see peers around you doing better. Maybe like, I thought I couldn't spell very well in grade 1. And I still think about the instance of a girl that I knew went way, way, way up on this spelling thing that we were doing. And I got stuck, and like, I'm a very good speller. And so I had thought for many years that I wasn't good at school and like, I wasn't smart. True.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, that's a good point. I'm going through that right now with my youngest, who's just learning to ride a bike. He's a little bit older than some of his friends, but you're right. You'd never say to him, I just don't think you're a bike rider. You should probably hang it up. We'd never do that, would we? But we sometimes do that to ourselves, don't we? And I think you guys are right that, at a certain point or a certain age, we start to compare ourselves to others. We start to, be a little bit more self-aware, open to that, vulnerable to that, like fear of criticism. I think sometimes maybe too, like the risk reward factor almost comes into play. Sometimes the risks are just a little bit higher. You know, sometimes it hurts a little bit more when you fall at my age. Like now that I'm a little bit bigger, when you're learning to walk, you're a little closer to the ground. Now when I fall, it's like that hurts a little bit more these days. During COVID, I learned to I did two things. I learned to cross country ski and taught myself how to skate and how to like stop. And let me tell you, those hurt when you're falling on ice and snow. That's tough, especially when you're teaching yourself at, you know, the age of 30 or 38 or 40 or whatever that might be. But the truth is that, you know, failure is a necessary part of success, 100%. And we all encounter it at some point, don't we? Each of us. I mean, here, let me put it this way. You cannot not fail unless you're not playing the game. It's a little bit like, who is it? Is it Jordan Peterson who says, like, you don't get to not have the pain. You get to choose your pain. It's either the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. It's one or the other. You don't get to not choose a pain. Okay. It's one or the other. It's almost like that with failure too. It's like a part of the game. It's a package deal. Like everybody must experience it to some degree or another. It's embedded right in the system. Okay. And we talk, it's just like the persistence test. It's a part of the game too. Now, you know, I don't know where you guys are at with this, but there's some very, very intelligent people who think that this whole thing called life is an actual like simulation. Did you guys know that? Are you guys aware of that? Yeah. Now, we've talked before a little bit about like the Matrix, right? And you know, I've heard Brett say before too, like the Matrix isn't a movie, it's a documentary. You know, it's not fiction, it's real. Now, when I listen to people like Elon Musk or Peter Diamandis, he's another space explorer. These guys are convinced like the life as we know it is actually, it's a simulation. They're pretty sure. They say more than likely. Now, I don't know, like that's a little bit out there even for me. I'm pretty open to ideas and that sort of thing. And I'm coming along. Sometimes I think I've totally lost my mind, but you know, I remember the very first time that I really realized to what extent energy plays a role in our life and how nothing is actually as solid as it appears. And that everything, we live in an ocean of motion. And that everything is vibrating at a specific frequency, at a specific vibration, a specific rate, including our physical bodies. We are a mass of vibrating energy. It's always vibrating, even after we die. That's why our bodies are able to disintegrate even after we've passed. But I'm looking at my hand thinking, this looks pretty solid to me. But there's our senses playing tricks on us again. We are a mass of vibrating energy. And some of these people are convinced that this is a part of the game. That this whole thing is a simulation. Now, again, this thought line of thinking is a little bit hard for me to wrap my head around. But I do find some, I guess, positives in being able to like add a little mental reframe around this and view life as a game, as it is, okay? And see it as, you know, an opportunity to play the game and have fun with it and relax a little bit, play a little bit looser, take a few chances, let it slide, not take it so seriously. I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I have a tendency to take life way too serious. Sometimes I have a tendency to take myself way too serious. That's something I've really had to learn to let go of a little bit, is other people's perceptions of me, and just let me be me, let myself be me, not take myself so seriously. When it comes to failure, well, if it's a necessary ingredient to success, well, when it happens, like, roll with it. Learn from it. Take it, the lesson, and apply it. Or like Tamara would say, look for the silver lining. Look for the silver lining. You know, extract what you can from the experience, because that's all it is, an experience. Now, there was a paragraph here that jumped out at me from the Success Habits. Okay, on page 99 of the version, the copy that I have here, he says that there is a law of nature which provides that every adversity, every defeat, every setback, every failure, every heartache, every disagreeable circumstance that you may ever experience carries with itself the seed of an equal benefit. I didn't say a full-blown flower of benefit or the ripened fruit. I said only the seed. Okay. In order to benefit by that seed, you must first have to recognize it. So you got to be aware of it. You got to be able to spot it. Okay. And you have to know that it's there. He says you have to expect it and be looking for it instead of looking at the adverse side or the negative side of the experience. Second, you must germinate it through some sort of action and develop it and make use of it. So first, you got to know that with every setback, with every heartbreak, and with every failure, there is a seed of an equal or greater benefit. You got to know that. So you got to be looking for it. So when that setback occurs, like Tamara said, where's the silver lining here? Where's the positive? Where's the lesson in it? Where's the opportunity in it? And second, you got to germinate it. You got to cultivate it. You got to grow it, because chances are it's not going to be the ripened fruit of opportunity, but there's opportunity there nonetheless. Okay. And then he says that nature has very cleverly arranged that nothing shall be taken away from anyone without giving him something in return. Nothing shall be taken away from anyone something without giving something in return. That's the law of nature. That sounds to me very similar to the law of cause and effect, does it not? If you lose something or something taken from you, you'll also be given something too. So I can kind of rest in that understanding, or rest in that knowledge and the awareness, knowing that, well, is there ever really such a thing as loss then? I don't know. But it's the law of cause and effect. You know, it reminded me of, and Brett and I were talking a little while ago about the Japanese word for crisis and opportunity is the same symbol. The Japanese word for crisis and opportunity is that same symbol, that in every crisis lies an opportunity. You know, there's that law of polarity again, right? Now, if we're talking about failure, I think that we should probably address it, probably understand it, probably know a little bit more about it, so that it's not just something that we're trying to avoid at all costs. Because I mean, that's one of the things that continues to come up in our conversations about fear. Fear of what? Well, fear of criticism, fear of failure. And I think that the more that we understand it, the more that we know it, and also the more that we are aware of what it is and how to avoid it, the better off we are. So Napoleon Hill has what he would call the 15 major causes of failure. The 15 major causes of failure. Now, here, in a situation like this, or in instances like this, I find it helpful to kind of keep a little bit of, I don't want to say like a running tally, but identify them and then kind of rate myself or give myself a bit of some feedback on like, where does this exist in my life? Where am I guilty of this? Or how am I doing in relation to that? Just kind of score myself. Okay, so if that's something that resonates with you guys, maybe you want to give it a shot. But the first cause of failure, you guys won't be surprised to hear this, okay, is the habit of drifting through life. The habit of drifting through life. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means not having a clear goal, a clear destination, no purpose, no plan, no direction. You know, if you buy what Earl Nightingale is saying, Earl Nightingale would say that that's 98% of the population. That's most people by a vast majority, okay? But let me ask you, like, if you don't have a goal, if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a direction, if you don't have, you know, some sort of purpose or passion, what the hell are you even doing? Seriously. Well, I'll tell you what you're probably doing. You're probably running the rat race. You're probably competing with other people. You're probably not enjoying much of it. You're probably not creating or expressing yourself. You're just maybe keeping up with the Joneses, trying to survive. To me, that doesn't seem like a lot of fun, you know? But the second one, okay, the second major cause of failure is unfavorable physical heredities, or if you're taking notes, you could just call it like birth defects. Birth defects. I thought this is interesting, Napoleon Hill, but okay, I'm listening. And he says, well, you can't control that. That kind of thing, one, is out of your control. You're not going to be in control of some of those types of things. Okay, but two, he says that it's not a need for failure. It's not necessarily cause for failure. And when you think about it, or you look around, like some of the world's most successful people had some physical disabilities, abnormalities, or defects of some sort. Like, look at some of the world's the smartest people on the planet. Stephen Hawking's. Oh, talk about, you know, physical limitations. But what did that do for his mind? I mean, he was a pretty smart guy to begin with, and maybe always was. Or you look at people like Stevie Wonder or Ray Charles, blind, you know. Here's a perfect example. Napoleon Hill says that with every setback, there is an equal or a greater benefit. Jamie talked about this the other day when she had that eye surgery, and she said that her eyes weren't working, but what happened to some of your other senses, Jamie? They went up, way up. There's a great a great example of how nature has a tendency to do that, you know? Or who are some other people? One is Ashton Kutcher. You know, apparently Ashton Kutcher has webbed toes. Did you guys know that? Webbed feet. Sorry, ladies. Yeah, webbed toes. When Ashton Kutcher was asked about it, he laughed and he said, yeah, you know, but when the rest of you looks this good, he's like, something's got to give. Actually, I can relate to that a little bit too. You guys probably aren't aware of this, but I have two, like, maybe they're called deformed toes myself. So me and Ashton Kutcher, we're like right there. I think as far as like deformities go, it's going to be anything. It might as well be my two little toes. But I hear you, Ashton Kutcher. I hear you. But in preparation for this call, I did a little bit of research and I was looking online at like famous people or significant public figures who have either developmental issues or birth defects and that sort of thing. And the list is on and on and on and on and on and on. Everybody from like Megan Fox to there was countless. Some of the ones that came up too were things like ADHD and dyslexia. A lot of times people think that those are like learning disabilities. Just based on the pure number of people that I saw online that have ADHD, that are high achievers, I think maybe it's not a disadvantage. Fuck, maybe that's an advantage. Look how many people are thriving with that. Now, are there some things that they need to do in order to, you know, direct that? Possibly. Okay. But, well, you know, President Roosevelt was one. President Roosevelt, a lot of people aren't aware of this, but he was confined to a wheelchair. In fact, back in the day, he tried to hide that from a lot of the public. This is before the internet and before a lot of that sort of things. It was probably a lot easier then. But Napoleon Hill actually shares a story where he was walking down the street one day to go meet President Roosevelt, and he came across a man who was confined to a wheelchair, and he was begging on the street corner. And Napoleon Hill stopped to chat to him, and he said, well, what's got you down, brother? You know, what's going on? And the guy in the wheelchair said, well, can't you see? Look at me. I'm in a wheelchair. I can't do anything. Like, give me a break. I'm homeless. I'm broke. I don't have a job. It's all because I'm in a wheelchair. And I think, well, little did he know that Napoleon Hill was on his way to the White House to go have a conversation with President Roosevelt, who was also confined in a wheelchair. Just tells me that that has more to do with your attitude, more to do with your perceptions, more to do with your beliefs than it does any sort of physical limitations. Okay. Now, or Nolan Barnes, for example. Nolan Barnes is in a wheelchair. We talked with him on Monday. You know, and I was hoping that he would say this on the call. He didn't mention this, but I've heard him in conversations in the past say that that was a pivotal moment in his life that actually occurred and benefited and improved his life. Prior to that car accident, he was in the drinking and drug scene, no goals, no direction, no plan, no purpose. Now he's a business owner, an entrepreneur, a world champion athlete. None of that would have happened prior to that. Has everything to do with attitude, less to do with your physical limitations. Look at people like Helen Keller. Can you imagine? Unreal, unreal. You see some of the people online and on social media and Instagram and stuff like that who are training with like prosthetic limbs. And a lot of times the caption's like, what's your excuse? It's like, oh shit. Punch to the gut, hey? So number three, major causes of failure is, get this, gossip. Gossip. Now, this is an interesting one, isn't it? You know, I don't know about you guys, but one I think that we could probably all be guilty of to a certain extent. You know, a while back we did Momentum Lent. One of the things that I gave up was judging other people. Don't give me that look. You guys do it too. Don't even pretend you don't. But we all probably have a tendency to gossip to a certain extent too. Truth is, we all have limited time, limited energy, and limited amount of attention. And any time that we're spent talking about another person or talking about somebody who doesn't contribute to our growth or to our goals is a waste of that time and that energy. It's an energy leak. It's an energy drain. Just think about how much time we spend talking about other people that have no bearing on our life or our situation. Just the other day, here, I'm guilty of this too, but just the other day, my wife came home from a meeting. One of her coworkers, her and her friend went to lunch. And we talked for 30 minutes about this woman who had an affair on her husband and got pregnant, and then they divorced, and where they're at, and these 2 kids. And I'm thinking about it. We just wasted 30 minutes talking about this woman and her kids, and I have no idea. I've never even met them. I wonder how often I do that. I wonder how often we do that. You know, but we could probably tighten up our attention and waste less time on things that don't matter. Okay. Number 4, the 15 major causes of failure is number 4, a lack of a definite major purpose. And to me, that means like possibly like a life's purpose. Now, Napoleon Hill says we all have minor purposes. We all have minor purposes, and you know, we've talked at length about goals and things like that. But what about major life purpose? I don't know. This one's a hard one for me. And I find that this is one of those situations where like you can't give what you don't got. And I'm not entirely sure that I have a definite major life purpose. I don't know. Maybe, if anything, I would hope that it could be something to the extent of being a guide or a coach to help others. I don't know if that's my life's purpose. I remember I had a conversation one time a while ago where I think that some of the hardest part about that is admitting to ourselves what our actual purpose is. I think deep down on some level, we all have an idea though. But the best advice I have when it comes to pursuing your life's purpose is that if you follow your passions, it'll lead you directly to your purpose. If you follow your passions, it will lead you directly to your purpose. I find that oftentimes those two are inextricably connected. But sometimes there's beliefs tied up around, well, I can't do what I love and still provide for my family. All sorts of other social norms and social beliefs and things that are imposed upon us sometimes. Okay. Number 5 of the 15 major causes of failure is inadequate education. Inadequate education. Now, this is interesting because keep in mind, education and schooling are 2 very different things. Education and schooling are 2 very different things. In fact, the school system in general is a relatively new phenomenon in human history. The school system, as we know it today, was only invented in like the later half of the 1800s. I think it was like 1872 or 1875 or something like that. It's a new social experiment is what it is, really. Schools. And the purpose of schools, it was essentially the school system as we know it was based on the Prussian model, which is kind of like over there in Germany and that sort of thing. It was based on the Prussian model, and it was designed to get this, create obedient soldiers and workers. That's what the school system was designed for, to create obedient soldiers and workers. Okay. And the truth is that the school system as we know it today, I mean, we were taught how to read, write, remember, just long enough so that we can regurgitate it on test day. That's not an education. That's schooling. That's a very different thing. In fact, the word education or educate, the origin of that word is Latin. And I think it's pronounced educo or something like educio. And educio, the literal translation from the Latin origin, means to draw out from within or to develop from within. Very different translation that you'd find if you were to look up the word education in the dictionary today. That's not what education says in the dictionary today. So if education is to draw out from within and to develop from within, well, develop what? What would you be trying to develop? What do you think? What would you be developing?
Like from an education standpoint or from the school system standpoint?
If we're looking at like the origin of the real root of
Education.
education to draw out, like what would you be trying to draw out, or what would you be trying to develop within
Like your
yourself?
highest purpose or your highest self.
Your highest self, trying to develop your highest self.
Yeah.
I like that.
I think that's one of life's goals in general, is to like find your highest purpose and highest self before you leave this world.
Okay. Oh, I'm picking up what you're putting down. What else? What else would you try to develop?
Knowledge or skills that would support your goals.
Okay, knowledge or skills that would support your goals. So some specialized knowledge.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. Anything else?
I don't know, I just came up with habits. That was the first thing that crossed my mind.
Okay, what kind of habits?
I don't know, I just, I don't know.
Okay,
Study habits, like,
study
just,
habits.
yeah, just, I don't know.
Yeah, I like it. Anything else come up for anybody? Anything different? You know, if the sorry, was there something there, Melissa? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. I think also at this point in time, now that we all naturally progress through the education system, I think it's time to like, pardon my language, but like unfuck your mind,
Right.
right? Teach
Unlearn a
yourself-
bunch of shit.
Unlearn, yeah, to unteach what we've been taught and like kind of, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I could see some truth to that too. Yeah. Well, I think you guys are right that here, if the education or the origin and the real meaning of education is to draw out from within and to develop from within, well, what would you develop? Well, I think to a certain extent, yeah, like Jamie said, it would probably be like your skill set. Develop your skill set. I think to a larger extent, it would probably be your mindset. Your mindset. But it's also, it would be like just your 6 higher faculties, your 6 higher functions. Learning to draw out the ability to utilize the power of your mind. Don't forget, you have 6 higher functions of the mind. Okay, you've got the will, the intuition, the perception, the reasoning mind, the imagination, and the memory. There's 6 of them. The school system as we know it tend to focus on the reasoning mind and your memory. There's 4 other that they almost entirely forget about. Maybe creativity as far as your imagination to a certain extent too, but not in the same sense of the way that Napoleon Hill talks about the imagination as being your direct line to infinite intelligence. So to develop your ability to utilize the rest of it, the rest of yourself, to develop yourself. Now, there was a line in this that really jumped out at me too. And I love this. He says that if you're looking for an educated person, you'll have to find a person who has discovered him or herself. You'll have to find a person who has discovered him or herself. So how do you discover yourself?
Probably by doing the things that scare you and taking those risks.
Doing the things that scare you and taking those risks, hey?
You know.
Fail.
Mhm.
Interesting. You know, it's funny, we've talked before about the hero's journey. The hero's journey is Joseph Campbell's story, and it's that archetypical Disney theme where the tragedy happens, the hero goes out into the unknown, develops his character, his or her character develops his or her strengths, and then returns to defeat the villain, right? Well, in that journey, they discover a part of themselves that they didn't really know was there. Napoleon Hill refers to that as your other self, not the self that's looking at you in the mirror, but the other self that in some cases lies dormant inside and needs an opportunity to meet your other self. Napoleon Hill here, he says that generally speaking, when you find him, you'll find that he graduated from the greatest of all universities. The one in which I hold a master's degree is the University of Hard Knocks. He says that it's one of the greatest schools upon the face of this earth. And if you can survive it, if you can take the tests and go through it, the chances are that you'll become truly an educated person, not merely a schooled person. He goes on to say that a schooled person is usually just somebody who has a good memory and can remember facts and get through to exam day. But a truly educated person is somebody who knows themselves. One more thing here before I let you go. I was reminded of a quote that I had heard a while back that always stuck with me. And I tried to find it and I couldn't find any information or any sources. So I'm not going to get this exactly right. Okay. But the sentiment behind this always stuck with me. And the sentiment was that if you really loved somebody, you wouldn't wish them well. You would wish them all of the lessons that they need to endure in order to become the person that they're truly capable of being. If you really loved somebody, you wouldn't wish them well. You would wish them all of the painful lessons that they truly need to become the person that they're capable of being. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. The reason that struck me so heavily or so hard is because I know that I would not be the man that I am today if I did not experience the pain, the failure, and the setbacks that I did. It's what created me. It's a part of that. And if I take that lesson away, I'm robbing myself of that growth.
There was a video I was going to send on the chat this morning, and it was Steve Harvey, because we all love Steve. And it was about this concept, but it was more about his children. And he said,
Yeah.
he was having a conversation with another man, and he said, I've told my children, I'm not leaving them my wealth. I'm not leaving them my 90% of what I've made I will spend with my wife, and we're going to go live our life and do our thing. And, maybe 5% I will leave for my children. And the guy said, well, of course, because it's not what you give them, it's what you put within them.
100%.
And that is what creates character and strength and builds them and gives them everything that they need to succeed in this life, is what you put within them.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
The interesting thing is those are the things that can't be taken from you either.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thanks, Melissa. I love that. I think we'll end it on that note, but I appreciate you guys sticking around a couple extra minutes. I think moving forward, if we could all make an effort or entertain the idea of radically transforming our relationship with fear and radically transforming our relationship with failure. Beginning to see fear and that butterfly feeling in your stomach, or that tingling sensation, or the hair standing up on the back of your neck as an indication that, hey, you know what? I'm moving in the right direction. This is growth. This is moving into the unknown. This is moving into the unfamiliar. Seeing that as a good thing. And same with failure. Failure is just the universe's gentle nudge of redirecting us in the right direction. No, and it's not that way. Come on, let's go this way. And transforming our relationship with failure and seeing it, like Janelle said, as a necessary ingredient and something that is actually propels us in the right direction, rather than something that in most people cuts off growth and inhibits that movement. Seeing this as an opportunity to change that, myself included. But I think that that's the kind of thing, if we got into the habit of celebrating, maybe even publicly celebrating our failures as much as we celebrate our wins, I wonder how different the world would be. I wonder how different our relationships might be. I wonder how different we might feel about it. But anyway, I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy the long weekend and take care, and we'll talk soon. See you, everybody.